Cut off.
Because Jesus Christ finished his work on the cross, died and resurrected, he also calls us to live dead to selfish gain and to truly find the meaning of life. I went to public school up to 3rd grade, then I was homeschooled for 8 years. I'm now back in public school, and since returning, I've been saddened and troubled in realizing that so many people live their lives for what benefits them now, without any thought or understanding that these benefits will have no meaning at the end of their life. And kids and even the teachers shy away and shudder at the mention of eternity and the thought that there may actually be a greater purpose in life than to simply live for today. Trying to satisfy our souls with worldly pleasures and the approval of people always leaves us wondering, why does this only take me so far? Why do I still feel unsatisfied? Why am I still looking for happiness and contentment? Well, I believe the answers to these questions only make sense when we come to understand Christ's death, and that through his death, he also calls us to die to sin and selfish gain so that we may truly find the meaning of life. Jesus, my first example is as simple as this. There's nothing worth exchanging for your soul. First, let's look at Matthew chapter 16, where Jesus is predicting his death to his disciples. The disciples are not willing to accept that he must die and leave them and finish God's work. Peter even rebukes Jesus, and Jesus replies, "You don't have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." Then Jesus asks some of the most defining questions of life. He begins, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. Whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul?" To illustrate, let's consider Solomon. After searching for and experiencing all of the wealth, women, and pleasures of this world, he concluded that they all meant nothing. They were unable to satisfy his soul. In Ecclesiastes 12, he declares that these things are meaningless, and true meaning only comes from fearing God and keeping his commandments, realizing that in the end, we all will be accountable for every empty deed that we've done. Let's also look at Esau. We must not forget that through his decision of trading God and for a 5-minute bowl of soup, the scriptures say that he later wept, realizing the foolishness of his decision. This reminds me of the scriptures in Hebrews which say that Moses chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin for a short time. He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt because he was looking ahead to his reward. So not only do we realize that nothing in this world is worth exchanging for your soul, but secondly, we must understand that in the end, nothing that we've gained or achieved will matter in light of eternity, but only our relationship with God and the way we live that out through loving others and putting them before ourselves. Ravi Zacharias, a well-known theologian and apologist, relates a very personal story that illustrates this truth. His father-in-law, a very gracious and loving man, a godly man, was stricken with cancer in his later years. He began to struggle with the faith and battle the realization of this terminal disease. He was now on his deathbed and had not spoken a word for 3 days. He was in utter silence. With his family and his wife and children gathered around him, he opened his eyes for one last time. He looked up to the ceiling and he said these words, "That's amazing. Just amazing." And then he looked at his wife of many years and said, "Jean, I love you." He was gone. Ravi Zacharias explained the situation in saying that in the end, the two most eternally fulfilling things, that death is not the end and love can triumph through it all, he clung to in the last minute and died the way he lived. In conclusion, I challenge each of you to consider your lives and think, what do you really value in this life? Do you realize the material, tangible, temporary things you possess and hold close to you will mean nothing to you at the end of your life? I challenge you to always have an eternal perspective in mind, because when we look at how Jesus completed God's work, living his life in love for others and putting them before himself, we understand that through his death and resurrection is an invitation for us to also live dead to ourselves and dead to our selfish desires, and to truly live as if eternity is all that matters, because it is.